Okay.
Ada, I have a question for you. So you
hmm
are 2012 batch, I believe.
Yeah, 2008 to 2012.
Yeah, so that was a really long time back. So obviously the club has changed a lot since then. So like could you give us some insight into how the club was like back in your time?
Okay. So obviously, one very big difference compared to now and back then would be just the sheer number of people that were there. I think now the club probably gets, well, I think the Foss Club alone gets maybe like 20 people ish every year, I want to say, maybe even
Roughly.
more. Uh, Back when I was there, I think both the Foss Club and BIOS, I was originally kind of in both sort of scenario. I think both put together probably had only like 20 people. That might be a little bit of a stretch. Yeah, it was like 1/5 or 1/6 of the number that is there in the club in total right now today. It was pretty small, right? So obviously that small thing, it has its own benefits, it has its own drawbacks. That's it's just the way we started off. I joined probably in like the very early days, not immediately after the club was founded, but maybe like a year or a year and a half after the club was founded. So the club originally started off with the Sun Code for Freedom contest, which I'm sure most people already know about. So that eventually led to the formation of the Force Club, and so it was very small. And like today, you have an entire computer. Okay, of course, we haven't been there, but today most of the work happens in one of the large computer labs on campus. We had like a small corridor, maybe like 10 or 15 meters long, and maybe like 5 6 meters wide. We had like 5 desks or 6 desks in there, and some makeshift desks set up just to get things working. Uh, yeah, it was pretty small. It was pretty compact. I want to say to be a little bit more positive, but it was pretty. Yeah, it was pretty tightly packed. I want to say, right? We also didn't have a lot of facilities like what is there on campus today. We didn't have that working space was obviously not our own, or like not dedicated for the lab. It was like we had temporarily conquered it when there was this possibility of being thrown out at any point of time. That did actually happen after a few years because they hired more people to work as employees and they needed dedicated space. So that meant anybody who's not an employee gets kicked down the list
I
in the
see.
priority order. So we eventually did get kicked out of that place, and then we had to like scavenge around for a classroom that was open and just set up in there and just continue working, which is even more difficult because I don't know if you haven't seen the classrooms, but the classrooms are constructed in a very, let's say, not a very ideal manner in some ways. They have very limited power sockets, or at least back then that was the case. I don't know if it is still the case. And the power socket is never close to where the fan is. So you can imagine how difficult it is when it is summer. You either have a choice between the fan or the power socket, and you have to like
Wow.
shuttle between them when you're in that heat. Yeah, it was fun. That it was a nice experience for us, coming through all that struggles and stuff. But I wouldn't say that that's something that anybody else should ever go through. And we kind of made sure that doesn't happen again by trying to push for more dedicated space. And that did eventually happen in like 1 or 2 years time after I graduated.